President Biden recently called China's President Xi Jinping a dictator during a fundraising event for his 2024 re-election campaign. I mean, I'm not sure if that's what you call diplomacy, but it sure does make for some interesting headlines. Now, China didn't take that lying down. They called Biden's comment political provocation, and said it seriously violated China's political dignity, too. I'm guessing that's diplomatic speak for, we're not happy. But the irony here is that Biden's remarks came right after the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, had just visited China in an effort to ease tensions too. That's kind of like trying to put out a fire with a flamethrower, don't you think? Meanwhile, New Zealand's Prime Minister is hopping around the political minefield. He's trying to play it safe, saying it's up to the Chinese people to decide their form of government. But let's be real here, folks. When was the last time anyone saw a change government option on a Chinese ballot? Yet, amidst all this, Biden assures us that the relations between the US and China are on the right path, and that progress was made during Blinken's trip too. I guess it's like when you're on a road trip, and you take a scenic detour, that adds 3 hours to your journey, but hey, at least you got to see the world's largest ball of twine, right? I mean, come on. We have China's suspected spy balloon floating off course over the US too, and the so-called Quad Strategic Security Group being seen as a threat by China too. And yet, we're supposed to believe that the US isn't trying to encircle China with the Quad. This all feels like a sitcom, doesn't it? But let's be honest, folks, if this was a sitcom, it would definitely be Friends. Everyone's pretending to get along, but you just know there's a lot of drama happening off-screen. But hey, that's international politics for you. It's a circus, and all we can do is sit back, grab some popcorn, and enjoy the show. Have you all seen the news about the voyeurism ring on BBC? That's right, the gang, primarily composed of Chinese males, secretly filmed women and sold the footage globally. A BBC undercover journalist, through more than a year of investigation, exposed a voyeurism ring led by Chinese individuals. This ring has shot numerous public space sexual harassment videos, mostly shot in mainland China, and sold them to inappropriate foreign websites for profit, forming a mature industrial chain. Viewers can even customize the videos they want. This report caused an uproar online, making many female netizens feel powerless and fearful. As one popular comment summarized, the ringleaders of the voyeurism gang are Chinese males, the recruited voyeurs are Chinese males, and of the over 10,000 members attracted, the majority are also Chinese males. Therefore, what BBC has exposed is actually a pornographic black market gang with a Chinese mastermind hidden in Japan, yet using China as its main base of crime. What is astonishing is that after the news broke out in the UK, China's Weibo behaved like an ostrich, burying its head in the sand. Weibo quickly censored the trending topic, #BBC undercover journalist exposes voyeurism ring, and limited the search results for the word voyeurism, only showing posts by verified users. I began to wonder, is Weibo hypersensitive to the term voyeurism? Or has Weibo's server been infiltrated and it's currently in a frantic process of self-censorship? In contrast, when a female postgraduate student from Sichuan University suspected that she was being filmed in the subway and launched an online attack against Uncle Dang without evidence, netizens on Weibo, like a cat with its tail caught, immediately turned into keyboard detectives and began thoroughly investigating the girl's past. The Sichuan University female postgraduate suspected subway voyeurism incident creatively trended on China's Weibo for several days. It seems that for China's social media, moral judgment of women is more appealing than exposing a global criminal gang. After all, the latter might embarrass the government, right? This reminded me of an old Chinese tale. The story tells of an emperor who loved new clothes and was finally tricked by a con man who claimed to have made a new suit that only wise people could see. In the end, the emperor paraded naked in the street, and everyone praised his new clothes. I think today's Weibo is like the emperor in that story, preferring to believe a comforting lie rather than face an awkward truth. It's time to let go of those comforting lies and face the uncomfortable truth. We can't pretend not to see, we can't avoid problems for the sake of saving face. If we truly care about gender equality and social justice, we should face these problems with courage and persistence, not with cover-ups and silence. Our female friends need our support, they need our understanding, not arguments and attacks. Of course, we cannot forget that behind this is an even bigger issue. China's social media has been shackled in invisible manacles. Like a tamed lion, it can only pace back and forth in its cage according to the keeper's instructions. Was the BBC voyeurism news censored because it exposed things that some people don't want us to see? Look at the Sichuan University student. Her mistake is something that the Chinese themselves can judge, But when we turn our eyes to larger societal issues, we are told that the information is something we don't need to know. Isn't this perplexing? When I want to know the truth but am told those are sensitive topics, then what is the point of China's social media? If information is a form of power, then this power is now monopolized by a few. They use the power in their hands to decide what the Chinese can see, what they can say, and even what they can think about. They might say that they are doing this to protect us, to prevent us from seeing things we shouldn't. But I want to say, Chinese society has grown up. Chinese people have the ability to judge for themselves what is right and what is wrong. As we enjoy the conveniences brought by the internet, we must not forget that the internet should be open and information should be free. Each of us has the right to know the truth and the right to make our own judgments, rather than being led by some in the way they deem correct. On this issue, we cannot compromise, we cannot be silent, because this is not only about voyeurism, but about our basic rights as citizens. Hello everyone, I am your news anchor Yali. We are here to provide you with a one-stop service for Chinese news broadcasts and talk shows. I hope that you can get your daily news about China with laughter and joy. The US-China relationship has once again fallen into tension. Biden claimed at a 2024 presidential election fundraising event that China is experiencing genuine economic difficulties. Meanwhile, China angrily responded to Biden's characterization of Xi Jinping as a dictator, saying it seriously violated basic facts. The spokesperson of China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said that Biden's labeling of China's national leader as a dictator is a serious violation of China's political dignity and constitutes an open political provocation. Recently, Mao Ning, the spokesperson of China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, responded to questions about U.S. President Biden's remarks on the drone incident at a press conference, stating that the U.S. should have dealt with the issue calmly, rationally, and professionally. Instead, the U.S. distorted the facts, abused force, escalated hype, and fully exposed the nature of U.S. hegemony. Chinese netizens view Blinken's visit as a plea for peace, and Chinese official media have echoed this victorious narrative. However, no progress has been made on key issues between the two countries, which reminds us of the saying, two stubborn guys, head to head. Yang Dao, the director of the American Department of China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, emphasized that the U.S. has distorted its political commitment to China by making the peaceful resolution of the Taiwan issue the core content of the One China policy. In addition, China is active in the military field and plans to establish new training facilities in Cuba, allowing the People's Liberation Army to be stationed at the doorstep of the United States, which makes the United States more worried. The U.S. government has expressed deep concern about its military activities in Cuba. The U.S. government has tracked the entry and exit of employees of Chinese telecom giants Huawei and ZTE from the listening facilities established by China in Cuba, indicating that the two Chinese telecom companies may have participated in China's eavesdropping plan in Cuba. The Pentagon is monitoring China's every move in the Western Hemisphere. Furthermore, a former New York police officer was convicted for acting as a Chinese agent. Historian Robert Kagan wrote that no matter what state the American political system is in, it will not be worse than the 1930s. At that time, the U.S. was also severely polarized, including on the issue of whether to intervene in world conflicts. However, once the U.S. found itself in a state of war, dissent almost disappeared. If anything can eliminate America's political polarization, it would be conflict with China. Taiwan is doing well in the rankings of international competitiveness, ranking first in the world for 3 consecutive years and 6th overall. However, this has attracted the attention of China. According to an internal report of the Taiwan government, China is trying to interfere with the Taiwan general elections in January of next year by illegally funding candidates favorable to Beijing. The Shandong aircraft carrier moving south along the Taiwan Strait, with numerous aircraft and ships disturbing the sea and airspace around Taiwan, has caused concern in Taiwan. Retired U.S. General and former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Michael Glenn Mullen said that if a war breaks out between the two sides of the Taiwan Strait, the economic impact on the United States, China, and the world would be more severe than economic recession or pandemic. Indian Prime Minister Modi's visit to the United States will take defense cooperation to a new level, and NATO is conducting air military exercises in the skies of Europe to curb potential infringements by Russia and China. In terms of economy and business, the confidence of European companies in China has significantly declined due to regulatory obstacles and politicization. 43% of companies have reconsidered their supply chain strategies, and 12% have withdrawn some of their business from China. BlackRock said investment funds are moving from China to Japanese stocks, and according to the European Union Chamber of Commerce, 2/3 of the 570 companies surveyed said that doing business in China has become more difficult. As high as 37% of the European companies surveyed have or plan to move their Asian headquarters out of China. Europe has long maintained an open and liberal attitude towards free trade and investment. However, China's growing economic strength is causing unease across the European continent, with fears that Europe might be exposed to risks from geopolitical opponents. The European Union is now looking for ways to mitigate these risks without giving up the roughly $2.6 billion in daily EU-China trade. German intelligence believes that both Russia and China are trying to woo representatives of the German economy, exploiting their dependence on the Chinese market in the process. German politicians have expressed support for de-risking, opposing decoupling. Meanwhile, the Bank of China has decided to restrict transactions related to banks in the EU, US, Switzerland, and the UK for Russian customers, which may be a concession made by Beijing to coincide with Blinken's visit to China. The war in Ukraine continues, and the EU unanimously pushed for the 11th round of sanctions against Russia, reducing the number of Chinese companies on the list from 8 to 3. Senior EU officials said that EU leaders will call on China next week during the summit to help end the war in Ukraine, participate in addressing global challenges such as climate change, and readjust its economic relationship with the EU. Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, and other German car manufacturers have been accused by human rights organizations of not carefully reviewing whether their supply chains are involved in forced labor in China's Xinjiang, which may violate Germany's supply chain-related laws. Qatar has signed the longest natural gas supply agreement in history with China, and the Abu Dhabi government has invested in neocars. In the case of the deaths of 9 Chinese people in an African gold mine, Wagner framed France, and Paris wants to retaliate. According to a recent survey by the New Zealand Asia Foundation, 37% of respondents see China as a threat, a significant decrease compared to the 58% proportion in a 2022 poll. A recent poll by an Australian think tank shows that the country's view of China has softened, but trust in Chinese President Xi Jinping remains very low. The dissidents in China are once again under pressure. Ji Xiaolong is on trial for alleged provocation, with the prosecution using his open insult to national leaders as evidence. However, the outside world believes that his real cause for punishment is his pursuit of Li Chang for the responsibility of Shanghai's lockdown. Also, Yu Wensheng and his wife Xu Yan have been detained in the Shijingshan Detention Center in Beijing. The lawyers who have visited the detention center and the Shijingshan Public Security Bureau twice to request a meeting with Yu Wensheng have been refused on the grounds that new charges of endangering national security are about to be added. It is truly saddening that even the right to express different opinions has been stripped away. The frenzy of young people scrambling for leftover meal boxes also reveals the poor employment conditions of Chinese youth and the non-recovery state of China's economy. In May this year, the unemployment rate among young people aged 16 to 24 in China reached a 5-year high of 20.8%. China's unfinished building problem has continued for a year, with most related real estate projects unable to resume work and unable to deliver as scheduled, causing great dissatisfaction among the people and banks. ETFs related to China fell sharply on Tuesday. Although the People's Bank of China had previously lowered the benchmark loan interest rate, this move has generally disappointed the market, as they believe that China's monetary stimulus measures are not enough to support the slow economic recovery after the pandemic. The Ministry of Public Security has carried out a 3-year crackdown, confiscating guns and explosive materials. Zhang Jianbin, a current affairs commentator from Yixing, Jiangsu, said, "This involves the issue of regime, not a public safety issue. Under China's system, only the ruling party can own guns and possess violent power." According to reports, the famous scientist Hu Ben, who once participated in a coronavirus project funded by the US government, was one of the 3 Chinese researchers who fell ill with an unknown disease at the beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak. This inevitably makes us wonder, where did this virus come from? Multiple departments in China will jointly carry out a crackdown on illegal social organizations. This is today's News Express. Hope you like it. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. See you next time, take care.